in college, how I think about what education is, or what it should be at least, is you're building problem solving skills. In whatever you do, you're building an intuition on how to solve very difficult problems. And I think that is, if you go deep enough and you care enough about it, that is what can start to make you lonely, because if you get a strong enough intuition on how to solve difficult problems, you start to recognize a whole lot more problems and you start seeing them play out in life. And then you start thinking about them and you start thinking about, how would you even approach solving something like this? Because that's the whole gist of like what we're doing right now, right? In all your classes, you have an essay and you're like, all right, let's talk about this difficult topic, How are you gonna solve this? You essentially, when you get an essay prompt or a math question, you're saying, hey, can you solve this for me? Can you give me an answer? Like that's really all it is, and it's difficult, and but I think it makes us lonely because I think we sit and you start to see more problems play out, and you start to, I don't know, just kind of takes over your mind a little bit.
It's kind of crazy because when I came up with this question and this topic, I didn't realize that it kind of intertwines maybe with how society perceives nerds and how they're like antisocial and this and that. But I think the reason that education makes us so lonely is because the more let's start over. The more you know, the more you realize how little you know. The more you learn, the more you realize how much left you have to learn and how much you really don't know. I think that could be the case, and maybe that's why society thinks nerdy and geeky people just like are antisocial or weird.
Yeah.
Because they can't connect with the same passions and interests as other people. Something that happened to me quite recently was, I'm a political science major. Dude, I stopped caring about politics for a phase or about the daily news, like how I would consume it before, because I came to the conclusion of like, why does it matter anyways?
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to accomplish regardless? Or like falling into the trap of like the nihilism, existentialism, absurdism question. And it's like, why does this matter anyways? Like, we're not, oh no, but we can impact the next generation. I'm sure we can, but with what? Like, if we live a good life, that's what, 75-ish years?
Yeah.
And after that, what?
There's nothing to show for it.
like, why does it end up mattering? And then you start falling into these traps where it's like, wow, I can't even solve this problem. There's deeper problems. And we're talking about superficial level problems.
Exactly.
That really doesn't matter. I think that could be why it makes us lonelier. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think I totally lost my train of thought, but I definitely agree. Like, it's just difficult. Oh, okay, yes. So I was on the phone the other day with, an underclassman. I'm working in finance, and so I've gone through the whole recruiting cycle, internship, and, now lucky enough to be going back to work. And it's a really difficult process, and there's a lot of moving parts and, understanding like what a Wall Street bank does and how many arms of operations they have and how they make money, and it's overwhelming. And so you have to go through interviews and sort of act like you know what you're talking about, but not too much, because the person will be like, you don't know anything about this, you're just a college sophomore. And so I'm talking on the phone with this underclassman, and I'm kind of trying to give them some advice and say how I think they should prepare and how they're doing a great job because they're a freshman and ahead of the curve. And I'm saying, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna read about these things, and you're gonna start to understand things, and you're gonna feel good, and then you're gonna understand things, and you're gonna get a little more intelligent. You're gonna start asking a little more intelligent questions, and you're gonna realize how much you don't know and how it goes on. And that's exactly the point. It's like you can like interpolate that example onto so many different things that happen. Once you start to you get the superficial level, you dig a bit deeper, you start getting really interested in the questions. Like, you brought up the philosophical example, like existentialism, and you're looking really deeply into it. And then you ask sort of like the peeled back question, why are we even talking about this? Why does it even matter? And then you ask those questions enough and you kind of loop back into going deeper again into the other questions that, it's just all like a loop that just...
It's like the same thing with this, like, well, you fall into the existentialism, and then it's like, what is the meaning of life? Does this even matter in the first place? And then you go into an optimistical point of view that's like, well, let me make the best out of my life. Let me do what I can. And then you fall into those superficial questions again, and it's like, well, maybe I do want to make political change and help the world become better because that's what I'm here for. Like, it's all these things that's like, it's almost like lying to yourself. I don't know. I don't think I told you this. I think it was somebody else. Must have been talking about it with Abby, but it was pretty funny. With life, it's almost like whether we like it or not. There's this book, The Denial of Death, and it just like describes what we do with our life to maintain or keep ourselves entertained throughout our life, right? There is love, whether that's family, relationships, friends, etc. There's art, which is like your job, whatever you do, whatever you're passionate about. And then there's religion, like that gives you a sense of meaning. But in reality, all we're doing is we're driving a car and we know that eventually at some point we're going to crash and we're going to die. But we don't know when that's going to be. So you can be pessimistic about it and just keep on driving and just know like, oh, I'm gonna crash anyways and my life will end. So I'm just gonna fall asleep at the wheel and we'll see what happens. Or you can say, hey, I don't know when it's gonna happen. Let me make the best of it and turn on the radio and sing the song at full blast and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's just like that absurdism, existentialism, nihilism question. And there's a loop. Those three aren't synonyms. Like it's a philosophical question between all three of those thoughts. But it's the same thing. It's like, well, I'm gonna crash anyways. Why am I gonna be thinking about these topics? And then it's like, well, maybe I turn on the music and sing along and end up caring about the daily news and try to make the world a better place.
Yeah. I mean, seriously,